Brittany Hugoboom, the founder of Evie magazine, now dubbed the conservative Cosmo, just did an interview with the New York Times, and I believe she expected it would not be a friendly interview, given their own reputation as a publication. But she says, "We recently moved to New York City and talked to the New York Times about how femininity is making a comeback thanks to Evie magazine and 28 Wellness." She's also referring to her startup, which is basically for hormonal cycle syncing with women's nutrition and fitness routines. But Evie magazine was the star of this piece. And I think that they wanted to focus on it because it's revelatory about the death of hashtag feminism and pop feminism. That was really the ideology du jour of the 2010s, and it took over women's media with no competition until very recently. Evie magazine was ahead of the curve on that. They launched in 2019, and I have been aware of it since almost the very start, but I never expected it to grow as exponentially as it did. And it was because they showed up on the scene at just the right time when there was an appetite and an audience for this, and no one else was providing it. So I looked at the New York Times piece, not expecting to see anything all that flattering about Evie or about Brittany Martinez. Here was the title. They say, "What conservative Cosmo thinks women want." They're already implying they don't know. "The Evie reader can work. She can be a mom. It's her choice. It's just not feminism." They start with, "Does Brittany look oppressed to you?" Gabriel asked, gesturing toward his wife. Mrs. Hugoboom did not. The model, clad in thigh-high black boots, was perched on a cream-colored couch in the couple's new apartment, poking fun at her critics.
Hugo Boom sounds like a fantastic name for a comic book character.
It is a great name. It's an imposing name. As editor-in-chief of Evie, a women's publication opposed to what she calls modern feminism, Mrs. Hugoboom has been accused of participating in her own subjugation and undermining women's rights, claims she finds ridiculous and unfair. "There are all of these people who are so triggered and angry that we exist." She says those seeking left-wing views had other publications to read. Why can't there be one that offers women an alternative? The Hugobooms are co-founders of both Evie and 28, a menstrual cycle-based wellness app. Through 28, they sell a supplement called Toxic Breakup that encourages women to quit hormonal birth control. And they also mentioned the clothing released by Evie, the controversial sundress and the raw milkmaid dress that started wars online, even within the trad community. She says, "We want to build the one-stop shop for femininity." The
trad community.
Are you going to claim that that's not a thing?
No. Continue.
There is such a thing as the trad community.
Continue.
And they have their own factions therein that war with each other. And I see it happen. They have, constant reasons for outrage and debate.
Okay.
Femininity does not mean feminism, which Brittany doesn't define as equal rights, but a self-hating movement that is anti-family and anti-male, one that shames women who choose conventional roles. Despite running two companies, she is particularly critical of what she calls girl boss feminism. So in this piece, they're skewering Brittany's integrity, claiming that, oh, you care about traditional values, and yet you run companies. And they see a contradiction between those two things that, honestly, Brittany doesn't see as a contradiction at all. I don't.
Yeah, okay.
I don't. I think that there is a faction of these, like, super trad people who think that women should do nothing creative or industrious outside of birthing babies.
It reminded me of the...
That's not the majority.
It reminded me of the Megyn Kelly clip from a couple weeks ago, where she talked about women being able to have everything that they want. And she got some pushback on that because a lot of people said that, like, that might be true of a fair few, but not necessarily good advice for everyone.
This reminds me of this new term. I don't know if you've seen it yet. It's called pink collar jobs. Yeah, it's not blue collar, it's not white collar, it's pink collar. And it's a way that women are selling the lifestyle of working from home, living a relaxed life, making money in a way that you're not beholden to a 9 to 5 schedule or to a corporation.
Okay.
And you can basically live the more trad lifestyle, but still have a side hustle that brings in supplemental income to your household.
Okay.
So they call that pink collar. But I think they also say a single woman could have a pink collar job too.
Okay, so so it's not like I'm like you mean like run an Etsy store? Like
it could be that,
okay.
But it depends on who you ask. But I would assume that Brittany is more so in the pink collar category. But it's interesting because her husband is obviously an active role in this interview, and he is completely supporting her vision for these companies, and it's been extremely successful for them.
What does he do for a living?
I think they said they met at University of Dallas when they were both 18 years old.
Okay.
They both dropped out of college at around the same time, moved to LA at the same time.
Okay.
And she went into modeling while he went into creative direction. I don't know any more details than that.
So he's an art guy.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what creative direction he was doing, but now all that he's directing is related to Brittany's companies.
Okay.
So that's not what most people would call the traditional gender roles that are promoted, or at least that someone like the New York Times would claim Evie promotes. Yeah. Clearly, it's more nuanced than that, and they're not granting
you'd see it the other way around, where he would be running the business side of things, and being that she's a woman, she would know what women want, so therefore she would be the one controlling the creative direction.
Influencing it from behind the scenes, yeah. Now, they're trying to make an argument that Evie magazine is incredibly sinister, and they're reeling women in under false pretenses to radicalize them into far-right ideologies. At first glance, Evie seems nonpartisan, publishing content daily about topics such as award season red carpets and styling skinny jeans. But readers who click past hot girl health trends and Adam Brody appreciation posts will find articles that promote positions that are fringe, even within conservative circles.
Like
criticisms of no-fault divorce and in vitro fertilization, for example, packaged in a fun and approachable format. They say a typical Evie headline is Amy from Love is Blind is right to be hesitant about birth control. That's one of the topics that I think Evie was the earliest to criticize.
This is like when they use the term far right, and you have to ask them, like, what is your consensus on what normal right is?
Yeah, like what does I wonder what the New York Times thinks is far right at fringe
as compared to like normal. They never tell you what normal right is, because if having misgivings about birth control is far right, then does that mean that the only position on the right, other than being 110% in favor of birth control, is that you think that maybe it should be your choice to take it or not?
Yeah, I guess.
But you can't be against it in any way, shape, or form. I don't know.
Well, they're always talking about consent, but the word they leave out is informed. Mm-hmm. You know, you actually have to have the information in order to consent to something properly, one way or the other. I'm looking at some of the headlines on Evie right now, for example. Here's this one. You're going to love this. Forget football. Hockey is the hottest sport a man can play.
I do notice sometimes that if you look at their Instagram page, they definitely get some pushback for some of their headlines from their own side, saying that this is a little bit too vapid, this is a little bit too sexual, this is a little bit too... We have a joke here where I point out any disgusting sexual headline that you might see on any woman's magazine, and then you just add, with your husband, and Evie's like, print.
Right. They have a sex columnist named Ivy Lipton. It's probably not her real name. And it's giving all of these sex tips to married women.
As long as he's your husband, you can do whatever fluffernutter thing you want to do. It's fine. Just as long as you're married.
It's a little bit crazy. But another one on their front page is your 9 to 5 slowly killing you. Severance reveals why men and women experience corporate hell. How about
That doesn't sound like
the fashion aesthetics in White Lotus? You know, there's not. It's not like you open the page and it's like, I don't know, we're getting invaded. Like, why you should, here's 10 reasons why you should buy xenophobic lip gloss. I don't know. Like, it's not really what they're claiming it is. The publication assumes the Evie reader aspires to be a wife and mother, even while it acknowledges that she has options. She can study and work, just not at the expense of a family. She can be sexually adventurous with her husband. She can delay pregnancy by using natural fertility tracking methods. Evie positions motherhood as under attack, citing falling birth rates. Steve Bannon has gushed about Evie's coverage. Candace Owens says she is a longtime fan and said her first photo shoot appeared in Evie. Brett Cooper has also praised Evie. And even critics of Evie acknowledge the appeal of its messaging, saying it's a perfectly pretty gateway drug.
Oh, it's the alt-right pipeline.
It's going to send women down the alt-right pipeline.
1 second you're looking at xenophobic lip gloss, and the next minute, you know, you don't like birth control. Anything could happen.
It's a pretty gateway drug to ideologies which exist to protect the privileged and further disenfranchise the marginalized.
Okay.
Like, they just don't know how out of touch they sound, you know? They don't, I mean, I know they're acknowledging the appeal that it has. Well, okay, try to learn from that. Learn from the mistakes that feminist media made at Jezebel and The Cut and Mary Sue in the 2010s, which are now crashing and burning, and no one is interested in it anymore. Evie is growing. I know they're smaller than, like, you look at Cosmo, they're smaller in sheer numbers, but they're growing faster.
If the idea here is you're comparing it to the Mary Sue and all of those, most of those ran on venture capital. So I'm assuming that they're not running on venture capital here. That this is just their own operation, in which case they've got an advantage.
It's both. It's both. They have investment, and they also have subscribers and ad revenue.
Okay.
So it's both and.
From a completely outside perspective, as a dude, I would say that maybe the biggest difference that I would see between something like this and, say, a Mary Sue would be that articles from the Mary Sue tend to be heavily leaning towards snark. There's a lot of snark and a lot of sour grapes in most of it, whereas most of what I've seen from this stuff, you know, outside of what I think to be some of the cringier stuff about sex, at least seems to be a pretty, like, real attempt to connect with ideas. A very earnest attempt to connect what they believe in to everyone, as opposed to trying to woo people to your side by promising that you can be snarky with them against people you don't like.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Well, the success of a publication like Evie can be almost entirely owed to the hubris and oversights of publications like Teen Vogue and 17 and Glamour and Cosmo and all of the big names that were on shelves that are failing now. And they can't seem to admit defeat. And I think the best ideas come about when someone sees a desire that they have that's unfulfilled, and they're going to create the product that doesn't exist yet. She said she loves pop culture and fashion, but the publications she read to learn more about, say, Taylor Swift, also featured articles about polyamory and Marxism, and nowhere could she find much positive content about marriage and motherhood by comparison. And so her idea was born out of a lack for that audience. And the audience of people like her is bigger than they had any clue.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great idea, and I am supportive of what they're doing generally. Missteps aside, I'm not a huge fan of the way they marketed the raw milkmaid dress, or I'm not a huge fan of their sex column or anything like that. But for the most part, what they're doing is working for a reason, and I think that it presents a lesson to be learned for the other media publications that target female readers that are failing.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media, and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.